Looking for an auditory companion to keep you occupied while you work? I've got just the thing for you. Welcome to the Soup Kitchen, a comfy podcast for you to enjoy a whole range of topics from one sip at a time. I'm Sophia, your host for today. You know what's been on my mind recently? Information. It's such a vital thing in our world, and heck, it might as well be the second most important currency alongside actual cash. Information's extremely valuable, and having access to it can propel you to heights you probably never would have imagined. Now, it does no good for information to be gatekept, so information should be communicated as well, and it should be done so fairly, keeping in mind those who may not have access to it, especially if they're behind technological advancements. That's where ICT4D comes in, or Information and Communication Technology for Development. Now, when it comes to ICT4D, we probably like to think that we're at the zenith of it, like we think that we can't possibly go any farther. Some people may get that impression when they see ICT efforts in other countries, but when we look at the state of ICT in third world countries like the Philippines, well, there's a lot to be desired. There's lots of things behind why the Philippines' ICT infrastructure is really poor. There's things like the lack of infrastructure in rural areas where stable electricity is an existing issue that still hasn't been addressed. There's also the lack of support given to families that may not have access to new technology. Like in a world where having a home computer is basically needed for every aspect of life, they only have their phones or the local computer shop. There's also the very, very rampant issue of corruption where the greedy maws of those in power do everything they can to hoard wealth for themselves instead of using the funds for government projects that can easily uplift the Filipino people. Oh, have I also mentioned how the functional literacy rate of students is at an all-time low in regions with high poverty rates? How can we begin to address digital literacy when there are people who can't analyze the words they're seeing? Alright, I know that all sounds so grim, but I promise that it isn't as bad as you think it is. Okay, I know that's rich coming from me, a Gen Z student who grew up privileged with access to tech at my fingertips from an early age, but hear me out. The Filipino people are not fools. All of us know that the world is turning into an information-based society, and in line with that, there's been sincere efforts by development planners, the government, and even organizations to bolster the state of ICT. Heck, countries even reached out to the Philippines to outsource work for BPOs or animation. There's been some effort here and there, but from where we are now, what can we do to help the Philippines catch up to the world? Personally, I think the Philippines should prioritize bridging the gap between the privileged and the unprivileged. Think farmers that may rely on outdated knowledge and technology who would greatly benefit from the advances in agricultural tech, or students who have no access to online learning sites. More effort should be given into providing the disadvantaged with ICT4D resources to bring them up to the baseline. Giving them that tech will not just allow them to communicate better, but it'll also give them access to information, and as you know, information leads to opportunities, which leads to jobs, which leads to, you guessed it, an improvement in the quality of life. I'm not asking for the Philippines to be on par with like Japan or China or like Singapore in levels of technology. Not at all. Not yet, at least. But what we can do now is to take small steps to make sure that everyone has fair and equal access to information and technology. And from there, we will naturally see the country develop by leaps and bounds. It won't happen overnight. But as long as these efforts are bolstered by a genuine want to see the country flourish, then I think it's possible. I went on a tangent there, but I think this is a nice way to wrap it up, yeah? Thanks for reaching up until the end and finishing your bowl of soup from the soup kitchen. I'm Sophia, signing off.